Have you got that set up? Is that set up as a frame?
I have that set up as a frame. Yeah. So the native options for this are a little limited in where you can put the elements. So like we used to do just this, right? And then we used to have our own. I forget even how to turn it on. I think it was. I don't know. I am struggling.
We did stuff.
There was stuff. But see, here's where I struggle because like if I ever did want to turn that stuff back on, I want to know where it is.
That's true.
Like I have zero clue where that stuff is. I mean, there's like this stuff, right? This stuff is the native stuff right here.
Yeah.
And we could do, something like that. It's okay. Not a fan of that style. I think I like this one the best, but it's just 3 styles.
Yeah.
So we don't get control over everything. And then like we could add a ticker. That's fine.
I find that kind of tickers are sort of funny. Tickers work, but not for what we do because obviously the high quality stuff there.
Just got all the jokes.
Yeah, that's just get
welcome to Thursday, folks.
Oh dear. Yeah, because we do, more people get kills on the audio than
yeah.
Yeah.
No, our audience is definitely bigger audio for sure.
It's did you watch SpaceX's launch?
If you can call it a launch.
Well, it's surpassed all expectations apparently, and I was like, you got low expectations. That's cool. I mean, I think it's one of these things, isn't it? I think we've blown it up. See what I did there?
Okay, yeah, funny.
But with what they did with the Falcon rockets, they had, disaster after disaster after disaster after disaster, and they went through a bunch of them before they got stuff successful. And I think I certainly, and I think quite a lot of people watched this and was like, well, it's just going to be, they've done all that before, so this is just stuff, isn't it? It's just new stuff. And the fact that I think that they got as much as they did, I think we just expected it to work because of what they did. And so when it blew up, it was like, oh, they failed. But actually, it is still the biggest thing to ever come together. So I don't know.
Isn't it the biggest craft launched?
Yeah, it's by a country mile. It's huge. It's, you sort of see the scale drawings, even to like the Falcon 9 rockets, even to the some of the others, and you're just like, it is massive. And just to get that massive lump of metal and fuel off the ground is phenomenal. Yeah. But I think the thing I love about the SpaceX stuff is they've got so many different people thinking outside the box. Because obviously with the smaller rockets, they come and they land back on the ships, don't they? They come in and they land themselves quite good, and they come to a realization that with these big starships, or the mega booster, they can't just do that because it's so big. It's just fast, so they're not. And so clearly somebody had the idea of like, wouldn't it be great if we could just grab it and like grab it just as it's landing and nicely put it down? And then somebody else said, that's a great idea, let's do that. And that's exactly what they've done. They've basically created a big set of tweezers or chopsticks in the air to catch hands. And you're like, that's just mad. But you can see, they've got 2 more launches lined up to make it work. And I think, it's disappointing to see that they didn't manage separation. But they went to Max Q, which I think, for me, that was the biggest hit. The fact that they didn't get to that level of pressurization, but then something clearly went wrong and they couldn't separate. But again, just seeing it flip-flopping in the air, just going, because they've got this weird maneuver. I don't know. I haven't read enough into it about why they have to do it, but they have to flip in order to separate. And you're like, okay, you do that, you do you. But then you see it flip, then he's like, and it flipped again. And again. And then the commentator's going, well, this is clearly not nominal. It's like understatement of the century. So, and then just
I don't know. I was telling my wife earlier, I was thinking it's a perfect metaphor for Elon Musk's popularity over time.
Yeah, possibly. I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think the stuff he's done with Tesla, the stuff he's done with SpaceX, where he could just be an engineer, sat in the background, basically an engineer with shed loads of money. He then pays somebody to be the CEO and all that sort of stuff, and he does what he wants to do, which is go and fiddle with the engineering, and that's how he works. Brilliant, knock yourself out. And I really admire the way he's fail fast attitude. Like it, really, really do. But then people mistake that, me admiring him for that, to me wanting to be him. I was like, have you seen how socially awkward that dude is? I'm socially awkward. He makes me look like a very calm person who loves engaging with people. He's been married like more times than you can shake a stick at, and there's a whole lot of stuff around who he is and what he is that I was like, not so much. But now obviously people don't like him really because of the Twitter stuff. And you're like, yeah, that's because he's going in and trying to do again the long screwdriver engineering thing. But it doesn't work on such a public-facing platform. It's not engineering in the way that he recognizes it.
Well, and his misguided social commentary. Let's be real here.
Oh yeah,
I mean that's part of it too.
Yeah.
No real segue, but speaking of social things, how about social robots, which is the story for tonight?
That's true. I like the way you went from one to the other.
I could have been like, well, since we're talking about robots and Elon Musk. But yeah, we talked about robots last week. I got a fun little addition to the live stream for you tonight. You ready for this?
Oh, go on then. Can't wait.
Boom.
Oh, you've been busy.
Check that out. Source article there with the GIF and everything. You can scan that right away and get to the source article if you like.
That's quite clever. That's just for the sake of trial purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and scan that guy too? I should have changed it as you were going.
Yeah, the way you could get people into trouble would be quite amusing.
It would be. Oh, there you go. There you go. That's the right one.
But
yeah, so that's cool. I'll bring that up while you're reading the blurbaroo.
Yep. No, I've been through it all. I obviously wasn't in the notes quite as early as I was last week because I've been driving like across the country. So
how's that been going?
Good. Yes. No. I had a couple days away, playing with satellites, and then back today. And though I think I moaned a lot last week about me having a sore neck and a sore shoulder, we still have a sore neck and a sore shoulder. This is the downside of socialized medicine. That when there isn't enough money in the socialized medicine pot, they're trying to get some simple high quality painkillers, and trying to segue that into actually like a really busy day job and stuff proves difficult.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So anyway, I have a prescription to pick up tomorrow, where hopefully I can pick them up and get some better painkillers. Though it's better than it was. I've been sleeping a bit more, but then at the end of the day, you feel it right at the top of the spine. So if you see me popping things that look like Smarties, they're not Smarties. They're high quality pills.
There you go. High quality.
It's,
Walter White would be proud.
Indeed, yes. But I bought mine from a shop, not a camper.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go.
I've never actually watched that yet. I think I've watched the first like sort of 3 episodes, and that's it.
Oh man, that series is like A lot of people say it's really good, and from a storytelling perspective, it is very good. When it first came out, it was a weekly show, so you had a whole week to digest the things that you just saw.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go and watch it now, it's likely that you will either watch 2 to 3 episodes at a time or binge it.
Yeah.
And so my wife and I, when the big box set came out in, I think, 2013, 2014, something like that, we had sat and watched through like 6 episodes a day.
Right. Yeah.
And that takes a real emotional toll on a person.
Can you imagine?
It was like very depressing to experience it serially so close together in time, because you didn't have time to heal from the trauma of episodes prior before you were experiencing new trauma. And definitely take break. Like, I'm not even joking. There used to be a program on Animal Planet that was it was called Too Cute. It was just a bunch of baby animals. Okay. Now I bring that up because that was our palate cleanser. We would literally watch 6-7 episodes of Breaking Bad, and then go and watch Too Cute.
Cute animals.
Because we just needed something that made us feel better.
Well, remember your one more thing.
Uh-huh.
Are you going to talk about the first thing or not? Because if you are, then I'm not going to say what I'm going to say now. I'm going to say it later.
Oh, yes, I plan to talk about the first thing.
Right. Well, in that, I'm not going to say anything.
Okay.
Well, just need to say we started it. We're halfway through. That punch. And oh my god! Like I said, we're already on. We're about to start episode 6, and we're just like, and it's things obviously starting just to do things, and you're like going, and there's 13 episodes. What? Wow! So getting into that.
Okay, yeah, great. I cannot wait to hear your sort of your evaluation halfway through. I won't spoil the reunion for you. There's some specific aspects of the reunion that I want to talk about.
You can't do that until next week. We'll have it next week.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to, I can push it, because I can bring up what I was going to bring up is the technical aspect of it. So, like, there's this live streamed element to it. Cool. And I was also going to bring up some social commentary about the way that the conversation was driven during that interaction, but I won't bring up the what. And so there's still going to be.
Yeah. So as long as there's no spoilers, because otherwise I'll be I'll be upset.
So wait, let me just make sure the recommendation to watch this show is a sound one, at least. From
no, it does. I mean, so basically we sat down. Was it day before yesterday? No, it can't have been, because I wasn't here yesterday. So it was a couple of days ago, start of the week, and I said, right, we just finished watching something, and Amanda and Holly were there. And the thing called Love Is Blind came up, and I said, Nick says we've got to watch this, and we don't have to watch with anything else. We can just go straight to series 4 and we're good. And so we started watching it, and we started just like half an episode. We were just getting into it, and then that was it. Like 2 episodes needed to be done, 3 episodes need to be done, and didn't go to bed until like nearly midnight. And then like literally tonight, just before we've come out, because I got back earlier, we had dinner, and then like we've got time for an episode. You nearly got binned tonight, because we was like, no, we can't stop now, we can't. No, Nick won't mind if I'm like half an hour late, just to just to do
So,
this.
if you could just like tell me in some broad terms what's happening, like where are they? Like what?
So they've also been in the pods. They've now got they've gone out to Mexico, and they've obviously had the first couple of days together just on their own, and then they've had was it 2 days of mixing up with everybody else. So we've already had, and I'm clearly going to spoil it here for anybody else who hasn't watched it yet, but I'm rubbishing the names, but the first couple has decided that they're just not. That's it. They're not doing it anymore because he picked the wrong one. And literally the end of that episode 5 is him back in wherever he is. Seattle,
Oh
is it?
yeah.
And she walks in the bar, and he's just. I mean, I chose made the wrong choice. So we're there.
Yeah. Oh boy. You're in for a fun ride. Yeah. So I think that's where the they release it in chunks, and I think that was the end of the first chunk.
Right.
Or maybe it was the end of the second chunk.
I was going to say, because it'd be the second one, wouldn't it? Because they've done this is the Mexico bit, so
yeah, I think they did, the pods, Mexico, and then the next set, which is not a spoiler for you, is the real life.
Yes.
And then the last chunk of them is the weddings.
Yeah.
And reunion.
So very excited about seeing where this goes.
I'm so excited for you. You know what? In that case, I will wait. I will mention it as a brief thing. I was going to talk about this, but Barry is going in the middle of it, so I'm just going to wait until next week. Instead, I'll talk about this other thing, because actually the other thing is something that I just noticed yesterday, which is really cool.
Cool. Okay.
Hey. Well, yeah, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
No, I wasn't. I was going to say. It's clearly obviously exciting. We've done notes. We've done. I'm a bit. Considering last week we had loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of social thoughts, social interaction. We have absolutely nada this week.
Yeah. I noticed.
I was late to it because I was late back, and then I had to eat and stuff, and then just didn't get stuff out there. I had 2 people like them on various bits, and that was it. So I was like, okay, never mind. Next time, we don't need to interaction much.
I'm trying to see if anyone has responded to our social thoughts on any of the other platforms. I'm still working on some of the automation behind the scenes, so it's not. The thing I was going to bring up was actually this comment right here. Oh, hey, guess who we have on Mr. President.
I know, it's very exciting, and thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. It's
So do I have to address you as Mr. President, or is that just
President's fine. You don't.
Okay, President is fine. President.
We don't need to bother with the Mister.
President Dingleberry. All right.
But it's but no, and I got to do my first little speech, which was very exciting. And people have been very kind on social media. And so it's pretty cool. I think so. Actually, we could have a Patreon exclusive.
Ooh.
We talked about the idea about having a president's pod, and it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. We have a launch. I don't know quite how I'm going to make it happen, but I'm going to make it happen. I think what date did I say? I think it's going to be 2 weeks' time. So I think it's the week after conference. So that is going to be Tuesday, is it? Yeah. So we're going to record it on Tuesday the 2nd. So week after conference, myself and the new CEO. I say new, he's been with us like 6 months. The new CEO of the CIHF, to do that sort of week. It's almost like a week retrospective. We're going to do it every 2 weeks, so it'll be a bit of a retrospective, a bit of a forward look. So we'll do the first few, just trying to get it bedded in and all that sort of stuff, and then trying to bring in maybe some experts in, like from some of the special interest groups and maybe some of the other staff who are doing some interesting things, and some of the other leaders. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. Be very exciting.
Yeah, I'm thinking about from like a programming perspective what that might look like, because you got to organize every 2 weeks, and if you're organizing with the pod, is anything going to get done? That's where my mind would go. Be like, oh, am I going to be able to get anything done? Because I'm focusing on.
Well, I'm trying. The idea is that it's going to be. It's got to be a conversation. It's got to be a lighthearted. It's almost a peek under the cover, because at the moment so many people see this role as, oh, look, that's like very high. And I thought that like sort of 5-10 years ago, whatever. I was like, oh, I could never aspire to be a president.
Mr. President.
Crazy. Yeah, quite right. Just the people who don't know me, just president's fine. Sometimes I like sir afterwards. So Mr. President, sir.
Mr. President, sir.
Yeah. But you don't have to salute. This is not. I'm not American, so it's okay.
Gotcha. Yeah. Are you knighted?
Not yet, but
Okay.
But clearly, I mean
because then that would be Sir Mr. President.
Yes, that's true. I used to be called Your Worship at one point.
Oh.
So, because I think I mentioned before, I used to be a magistrate, so I used to be a judge, and but because I wasn't a Your Honor or anything like that, because of the way that this could, I was a Your Worship, which was weird. That was a distraction. So yeah, so the idea is that me and Ben Peachy, the CEO, and we will have just a discussion. His background is media as well, so he might be able to teach me some things about how to do it properly. Because clearly I can't trust to do that sort of thing by myself. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out. So we'll flex with it, but what I'm also keen to do is not to try and make it a thing that the next president has to do, because I think there's nothing worse than trying to drop somebody in it. So it's clearly going to be a thing because people know people are doing this type of thing. So let's try and leverage it and just get my two main aims around comms and engagement. So practicing what I preach to a certain extent. So
yeah. I'll be interested to see how that performs, because there's obviously like the HFES town halls that they do, and that's quarterly. And this would be like a bi-weekly, twice a month thing.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see if that's the right approach to take from a communications perspective, right? Because and it'd be interesting to compare and contrast, because the way that HFES does it is, they have a topic area that they'd like to at least just present on for awareness, so that way folks can get to know what's going on with the society. They bring folks in, talk about it, and then, but there's like a lot that I feel like I'm still missing from that format, at least. It's like there's all these technical groups and there's all these different efforts going on, and I almost feel like maybe instead of quarterly, it should be bi-monthly, 6 a year.
This is what I'm looking at. Maybe what we'll end up doing is too much. But I was trying with do you do it weekly? So literally, almost like the Human Factors Minute type idea, that in a minute, what's going on this week, or what has happened this week, whichever way you look at it. But I think knowing what I would end up doing, it probably wouldn't work. I wouldn't want to rush it just for the sake of rushing it to get it in the minute. So then you put it out onto a reel or whatever. So yeah, pushed out a bit wider. So we're probably looking maximum 10 minutes, but probably 5 minutes. Of this is the sort of thing that's been gotten. So highlighting which regional groups have met, and if there's any highlights from them, special interest groups, what's going on in the news, and what sort of engagements have we had that maybe people don't know about, that wouldn't necessarily come out, if there's any awards going on, or and just that sort of stuff that people might find interesting. What's going on in our local chat forums. We could highlight what's going on this podcast, and I think so. Yeah, I think there's we'll see what happens, and it's a suck it and see. It might not work. I mean, we do need to fit in with a bunch of other comms. So we have a weekly email that goes out every Friday, that Tina Worthy, our chief operating officer, writes, and it's sort of quite informal, but this is kind of what's happening thing about 5-6 major chunks. Then every month we have this thing called Think, which is a newsletter that sort of brings up some new stuff. Anyway, so again, sort of different formats. So this would sort of segue into them sort of formats. But obviously I'm wanting to push this out onto not only our chat, on the sort of stuff that we do, but like it's highly focused on like Twitter and the Reels and Instagram and stuff. Try and get the kids.
Try to get the kids.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking like there's a way in which you've built this idea that you can then combine them and say like, here's a quarterly recap of everything that's happened this quarter, and then you stitch together your 5 to 10 minute videos from the last 6 the last 6 episodes that you did together all in one episode, and then you drop it as an hour-long thing that people can tune into, almost like a town hall.
That's true.
So you're almost like breaking out the town hall into like bi-weekly. I know. I'm just getting the camera to follow me.
But then because that's another thing that we need to have a discussion about, is because I think we need to do some town halls, proper town halls, but international town halls as well. And this idea has already been dropped, to sow that seed, and I think it would be quite well received. So what are we trying to do internationally? Because
let's get that conversation started back up again.
Yeah, I think we should. But I only had it the other day with what's her name? It's completely blanked out my mind. The current president elect,
Carolyn.
No, not Carolyn.
President elect. That's why you do this to me, Barry?
No, I've just completely done that to myself.
Oh, jeez. No, I have it. It's why am I blanking on it too, Barry? I had it in my head, and I was like, oh, President, that's Carolyn. And then as you were, oh my goodness, unbelievable. Okay, well, I do remember, because it's and you're gonna really kick yourself when you remember the name. I think
it's Susan.
It is Susan.
Yeah, so apologies, Susan. But yes, when I spoke to Susan a few weeks ago, we went through a bunch of topics, and this was one of them around, is there something we can do around sort of an international town hall type idea, talking about the good stuff that you've been doing, so in terms of getting us to break out and talk to the masses. So anyway, all that was spanned off Alex's comment. So Alex, thank you very much, and I appreciate your congratulations.
Great pre-show talk. Hey, by the way, I should probably let you know, because in the notes here, the last it came from is just a voicemail, so I figured I'd play this right now so you have a chance to respond to it.
Nick and Barry, love your show, guys. So I'm kind of new to this field, graduating soon, and I was just thinking, how do I make some connections, maybe find a mentor, someone who's like really established, so I can learn the ropes, have some virtual coffee chats, and just like absorb all their wisdom. And any advice, guys?
All right, so
cool.
Rain sent us a voicemail, so we'll play that during the show.
Happy days. I like the idea of the voicemails. They're really neat, aren't they?
I do too. Yeah, I like them. If y'all want to send us a voicemail, that's just our website /voicemail. It's humanfactorscast.media/voicemail. You can get to us there. Leave us a voicemail. Actually, you know what? Hold on. I feel like this should be. Wait, hold on. That's how I talk to myself when I write URLs. Voicemail. And then I'll say something nice like, leave us a voicemail. Just do it. And then I can do this, and then I can put a little fancy image on it later or whatever. But at least now we have this right here. Leave us a voicemail. Just do it.
Yay.
You just click on you just scan that. You scan it with your phone. Whoa.
That was good.
Whoa. You scan that. Leave us a voicemail. Let us know. Whatever's on your mind. Be happy to entertain it. Thank you for scanning the code.
I'm now leaving us a voicemail. Do you think, how long can we leave a voicemail for? This is a really interesting voicemail. I'm sure we'll enjoy this voicemail when we get it. Anyway, Nick and Barry, love your work. You're amazing.
Whoa.
I know you want to go live, but this is really more interesting.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm totally okay with taking a second to, because I just got a new voicemail. One of our listeners just sent in a voicemail here, and it's strangely enough somebody else's name, Barry. Barry called in. What are the odds? Here's what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna share this here, and we're gonna play it.
Oh, I'm now leaving us a voicemail. Do you think, how long can we leave a voicemail for? This is a really interesting voicemail. I'm sure we'll enjoy this voicemail when we get it. Anyway, Nick and Barry, love your work. You're amazing.
Oh, thanks, Barry. That's great. So that was fan Barry. I'm gonna favorite that voicemail. Cool. So that's fantastic. If any of you want to leave us a voicemail, do that right here.
It's good to see the enthusiasm and the motivation. But I'm pleased that Barry was enthused by what he was listening to. I think Barry's a really nice guy. I think he's great. I think I could get along with him.
Yeah?
Yeah. Though
yeah,
maybe after a while he might get a bit irritating, but you know.
He's an all right dude. All right. We're gonna take just a quick little thing. We're literally gonna play the intro. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is episode 281. We're recording this live on April 20th, 2023. This is Human Factors Cast. I'm your host, Nick Knack Paddywhack Give a Dog a Roam, joined today by Dingleberry Kirby.
That's awesome. We need that every week.
I went with it last week. I'm going with it this week. We got a great show for you all tonight. We're going to be talking about relatable robotics that Disney is putting together. Later on, we'll be answering some questions from the community, including the most exciting project we've ever worked on, using ChatGPT and other AI models in your research, and what the best methods are for finding a mentor through a voicemail. So first, we got some programming notes. Barry, what is the latest over at 1202?
So 1202, we've got naturalistic decision-making with Rob Hutton. I spoke a bit about this last week, where he gives us this idea about what naturalistic decision-making is, and really how that's taking very academic methods and taking out the lab and bringing them into the real world, and actually giving us some stuff that we need to be able to use in real-world application. And then there's going to be a short break for about 3 weeks. So there's not going to be any new episodes for at least 3 weeks because of the Ergonomics and Human Factors conference coming up, and quite frankly, me being very busy. So we're taking a short break, and so we expect to be back at the back end of May.
Yeah, and let's just take a quick moment to appreciate and recognize Mr. President Barry Kirby. Congratulations, man. That's awesome.
I'm so proud and so honored to have been made president of the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors, if I could even say it. No, it is. It's one of these things that, like, lifelong career highs, as it were. So now that obviously getting to be president is one thing, now I've got to actually do something with it. So the next 12 months, I'm thoroughly looking forward to seeing what differences we can make.
I'm looking forward to it too. And now that you're president, I'm looking forward to your commentary on this week's story. So let's get into it. That's right. This is the part of the show all about human factors news. Barry, what do we have up this week?
So this week it's Once More with Feeling, exploring relatable robotics at Disney. So Disney's Indestructibles project focuses on creating robots that are emotive and relatable, instead of prioritizing stability or reliability. Disney wants its robots to evoke human emotions by showcasing relatable character traits, mannerisms, gait, or expressions. The project's aim is to create robots that can tumble whilst remaining in character. Disney's latest prototype was showcased at South by Southwest in March 2023, where the company was able to realize the full potential of the Indestructibles project, and the crowd cheered for the little character. The team had to adopt a modular design strategy to keep the scale small, reduce points of failure, and provide shock absorption, and use carbon fiber to minimize weight. The software interface for the robot is simple, interactive, allows for smooth blending of motions already grounded in the physics of the robot. The team has discovered that there is a huge unexplored space of robotic locomotion that evokes human emotion. By prioritizing character traits and emotions, Disney has opened up possibilities for dynamic and expressive robots, regardless of conventional robotic limitations. So, Nick, what are your thoughts on an indestructible little robot that you can watch tumbling around Disney?
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. From like a park goer perspective, heck yeah. I mean, like, look, so someone who loves Star Wars, you can imagine you take a robot like this, dress it up like Jar Jar Binks. It's a bumbling mess, and you throw it in Galaxy's Edge, and everybody can knock over Jar Jar, and because all the pieces are modular and relatively replaceable, you can imagine a lot of park goers have fun with that. But I mean, this is a really cool really cool piece of tech from a like interaction perspective. You can imagine that you can do things with these types of performers that you wouldn't be able to do with humans for one reason or another. One example is already in play, right? So I don't know if any of our listeners have been to Disneyland, probably. Lots of listeners in the Long Beach area, but there's a at Disneyland California Adventure, there's the Marvel campus, right? And there's a show that happens a couple times a day where Spider-Man comes out, and then you see him launch in the air and fly through the air, and that's a robot. I mean, like, it's really cool. You wouldn't be able to send an actor like that, but I mean, it's really cool to see him like flying above the air. You can expose these robots to dangerous stunts that humans couldn't necessarily do. And if it's done correctly, it still sort of encompasses that magic that Disney is known for. I'm Disney fan here, but I think there's still reason to be critical about this. I do want to just mention that this could be really cool to see some fantastical scenes kind of acted out by these robots with superhuman capabilities. I don't know, if you think about that Avengers campus exploration, you might be able to have a full fight scene that has like some really convincing contact, like hand-to-hand contact, where they're falling over, they're getting back up, they're just going left and right, and it's happening in front of park goers. They're robots, so they have awareness of everything that's going on. If they need to adapt and move, they can. Like, these really cool interactions could happen. I also think that beyond Disney, beyond the entertainment aspect of these, there could be a lot of interesting applications, specifically around mental health therapy, improving the lives of a lot of folks who deal with various ailments. I mean, you can imagine a scenario where these interactable robots that could potentially do these things could be, like someone's klutzy makes somebody laugh, makes a kid laugh. I don't know. There's just so many other applications, I think, that building these types of emotional robots, as they call them, would be really beneficial. I don't know, Barry, what are your thoughts?
So my first reaction when I read the story was, that's cool, like that. That's, it sort of hits that piece. And I'd recommend everybody go and click the link and watch the videos, because it's interesting seeing how they've taken it and they've really looked at some of this stuff. But then I was like, my second reaction was, well, but why? What is it they're truly trying to accomplish? Because if you try to design a ride at Disney, right? You try and design a ride, you want people to have that adrenaline rush. Cool. If you're on the boat ride or something, then I get all that. But if this is it meant to be on a stage? Is it meant to be in the crowd? They're not really that clear about what it is. So I posed it to the dinner table, as I often do before these things, and sort of highlighted to the family and say, so what do you think of it? And actually, they come back with the same answer almost straight away. We're like, well, why? What does it do? What does it need? And so, without being boring, but looking at it from an HR perspective, I'm like, well, so what's the task goal for Disney? Why are they truly interested? So, but to get away from that stuff for the second, we already know that people do feel empathy with non-real characters. So any animation you feel character with, think like Big Hero 6 on all that sort of stuff as well. That we can get that. Robot characters, you've already mentioned Star Wars, R2D2. Everybody loves R2D2. He's a trash can with some fancy knobs and lights on. But you feel natural empathy with him for what he's gone through. So this is kind of a natural step. You've already mentioned lots of applications, entertainment, health, therapy, stuff like that. I do have a bit of an ethically sort of issue, though. Is there a bit of a gesture, a bit of village idiot about this? Because are we laughing at them or with them? So if they're falling over, getting back up again, they're a bit klutzy. Are we mocking them? Is it right to mock them just because they're largely inanimate objects? Are we then belittling, does that have repercussions in the longer term for the way we treat AI, the way we treat machine, that sort of stuff? I don't know. There's something about it that doesn't quite sit right, and I'm not sure what it is yet. But I do love the quote. There's a quote in the article, which was, by shifting our emphasis towards the way we reach our goal rather than just the end result, we've opened up what feels like the world of possibilities for dynamic and expressive robots. Now, taking the robot bits out of it by emphasizing the way you reach a goal rather than just the result, I think that's brilliant. Because I have some of my most fun when we're problem solvers. We like solving problems. And so rather than just always trying to get to the result, actually enjoying that piece of the journey and not belittling it, not trying to just make it happen as quickly as possible. There is something about that I think is quite poignant. I really, really like it. Yeah. So, having gone through that slightly emotional roller coaster there, what do you think around the basic principles of it? So they're putting together this quite a small robot on roller skates. The idea being that it naturally falls over. It naturally is a bit klutzy, as we've said, but the design behind that to make that happen is quite sophisticated. How do you think? How do you think that focus works?
The focus on the interchangeable parts to make it.
I get all of it really, because there's so many. You think, oh, well, just to make it fall over, that can't be that difficult. But you watch the videos, and actually, to have it fall over in a way that it could self-recover, crack on. There was so much complexity behind it, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. So the way in which they're approaching this is, I mean, they mentioned several times the modular design strategy, and sort of the approach of making parts that could break replaceable easily. And I think that's right for a robot that fulfills this purpose. And I want to kind of go back to what you were talking about, the why. I think that, to me, this robot here is not the end game for them. I don't think that they would reveal their end game, but I don't think that this robot is the end game for them. I think this is a stepping stone to what I was kind of describing earlier, where you have these really intricate scenes that human performers cannot replicate, and you have almost like these robotic cartoon characters performing it. There's a lot to be said about the. I'm kind of jumping to the other point that you made about, are we laughing at them or with them? There's a lot to be said about physical comedy and comedic elements. I can imagine that this could be one of those instances where they are performing things that could be dangerous for humans to do, fall, be klutzy, in an effort to make that comedic timing work. And so, and then I'm just jumping off the other deep end here with like, what about robotic stuntmen? We talked last week about John Wick and the post show, right? And I was marveling at how a stunt person could fall down some stairs and not get hurt. If you could send a robot down a couple times, just replace a couple parts and have it react in a very similar way, you would mitigate the risk for humans to be injured during that process. They might still interact with humans at some point, but you're just throwing, a robot down the elevate escalator instead, right? So I think there's a lot of uses outside of just looking at this little cute guy with the roller skates who does a little somersault, because to me, this has larger ambitions written all over it, and this is a stepping stone. I don't even know where to go from here. There's so many ways in which we could talk about. We could talk about the societal applications. We could talk about the different domains that it's applied to. We could talk about the way in which this thing is built. We could talk about some controversial take. I don't know, Barry. Where do you want to go?
I want to go into application to a certain extent. So, but the safety aspects of it. So, and this goes down that whole human machine teaming, or the human machine interaction rather than teaming sense. So if you've got one of these things in a crowd of people, and I think that's probably some of the reason behind the sizing of what it's done. If it falls on you, as just a person in the park, it falls over, lands on your foot or whatever, then it's not going to cause that much damage. But even so, we are largely having a culture now where there's blame, there's a claim type thing. What sort of I guess safeguards are we going to need in place for this type of interaction? That is, we're sort of encouraging interaction, but actually it's still a robot. It could still do some stuff. So, what sort of fail safes? What sort of guidance are we going to have? Could you just let this loose in a park and just say go big guns? If it's still alive at the end of the day, then well, that's a bonus.
That's interesting points, and as somebody who follows a lot of the news coming out of the Disney robotics side, I can at least comment on some of it, right? So take an example that exists today, the Spider-Man example that I was talking about, right? They launch a robot and it flies through the air. This is all done over an area where there's no park goers, and so it's not going to fall on anybody. You can see it from a wide variety of angles. It just happens, and so that, in a way, is constraining that safety element, unless something dramatically catastrophic happens. Then you're not going to endanger your park guests. Now, with something like this, I can imagine the fail safes would look kind of similar to Start. There were these big grand plans when Galaxy's Edge first was introduced as a concept, that you would have droids roaming around the park autonomously amongst park guests. And that is still not a reality today. Mm-hmm. I think largely because of the safety element, people tripping over them, people not paying attention to them, the density of park goers in one place is probably a large factor too. You're probably limited in where you can launch them, what days you can launch them, right? All these different things. And so I'd imagine that they are keeping all that in consideration whenever they'd want to put something like this into the park. And then the interaction element, I can imagine a situation where they might small scale test this first, where instead of actually roaming around the park, you have that character as a meet and greet. And maybe it's behind a little partition or something. So that way, it can do what it needs to do and be a little klutz behind the scenes, and then anything, um, it's not going to impact you because you are behind that partition, right? So I think there's still some interactable elements there, but maybe not necessarily the the piece where you're going to get injured. And then the next test would obviously be to take away that partition and see if
There
it
you
can
go.
interact. Yeah. And see if it can interact. So I think that's, at least from my perspective, where the safety element is, that the slow roll and to see, how each one of these pieces works together before exposing fully to the environment.
So, and I guess there's another, because most of the robots I've interacted with, they've been in a very sterile but also adult environment, as in you've got. So I was going to say grown-ups. I've never been accused of being a grown-up, but you're talking like sort of over 16s, who know what the fact that it is a robot and that type of thing. But obviously Disney's full of young children, very small children, and so I guess I'm qualifying myself to a certain extent, because I said earlier, they've also designed it so it's quite small, but actually to a certain size of child, this is still going to be quite a sizable object as well. So who that maybe doesn't have the social understanding or the necessary human machine teaming understanding that we sort of have at the moment. That it's fun, it's whatever it is, but it's still not a human to play with. Whether how much that influences the design. I quite like some of the stuff that they suggested in the design, that they've made it a certain amount of elasticity in the joints and the actual material itself, because they fully anticipate it is the characteristics that this robot is going to have, but still fundamentally the emotion. I mean, what's quite interesting is the face of it is just a smiley face. It's that's not changing. It's a fixed, from what they've got as a robot, it's a fixed face at the moment. Yet it still conveys, for now, but at the moment it still conveys that sort of emotion, which I just think is thoroughly interesting. I think there's going to be a whole bunch of PhDs span off this to using this as a basis of experimentation, and I think it's going to be really interesting to follow.
Yeah, I agree, and I think there's going to be, back to the safety elements. There's always with character actors, you have humans
Mm.
right beside them to step in if for whatever reason there's drama happening with the character. That character cannot break that immersion for the children, right? Like,
Mhm.
that is, I guess, one of their goals is to not break that immersion for the park goers. And so
Yeah.
it's the role of the handlers, so to speak, to step in and say, hey, you need to leave, or please don't, whatever, or so and so's going on break right now, they can't take a picture with you. It's their role, so that way the character is protected. And so I'd
Yeah.
imagine you'd have these human handlers that would be saying, oh, we can't play with whatever his name is, this robot, I didn't even get a name. We can't play with them this way, right? That is not, we can't do that, so it's going to hurt him, or whatever it is, the excuse that they give, right? So I'm imagining that this won't be fully autonomous for a while, until it can
Mm.
do those things on its own, or until we come up with some robotic handlers that can do it to protect the character. Like, that's where my mind's at. And you're right, there's going to be a lot of PhDs spun off of this. I think this will definitely enhance the field of robotics from a lot of perspectives, right? You have like the Boston Dynamics stuff, but this really is making some advances in the durability of robots. And you can imagine, in a scenario where we've talked about like life-size humanoid robots in the home and the tasks that they might be able to perform for us. You can imagine that if we look towards this modularity design and this durability, adaptability components of being able to swap out pieces of a robot that is meant for, I don't know, I don't want to say physical abuse, but it is
Yeah.
physical abuse, right? And if you have robotics that are in environments in which they could get hit by things, right? I'm imagining like in a factory floor or something, lifting stuff up, and the person operating the forklift doesn't see them, and they run over them, and so you just need to replace a leg instead of the whole thing. So those types of applications where there might be a little bit more stress testing, I think you can certainly see those types of advancements coming in. There's also the advancements in emotional expression, and specifically through this one in the form of movement, right? Because you mentioned the face is static, but movement and non-verbal cues give us emotion as well. And so it'll be interesting to see what this does from that emotional expression perspective as well, for a human robot interaction perspective, just without that face, right? Like, what does that do? I don't know.
No, it's interesting because I mean, again, it's they may the way that they say this, because of the motion and the failure in what it does, so it falls over, etc., etc. It makes it charming, and I think that's an interesting characterization, because what do we mean by why does something failing make it charming? Why does it being a bit gutsy? Why does it mean falling over makes it, there's a
Because that's
certain
human.
well, but is it though? Because we don't, not everybody walking down the street falls over all the time. But it's, again, it goes back to this, what is it we're truly laughing at or with or whatever? Because actually, you could argue being that slightly klutzy character is almost very British. It's that idea what people sort of think the British people would, they might fall over or something like that, but it would be almost either ignored or a very, laugh it off type of a thing. But actually, why would that possibly, why do we interpret that as charming? Why do we interpret that as a characteristic that is good? I think there's something to dive into. Again, maybe it's a area of study about why do we is it true, are we truly feeling empathetic with it? Is it like, oh, that is something that I do or whatever, or is it because it fell over, therefore I'm better than it? What is that feeling that we would truly feel for it? I'm not entirely sure that charming is the right description. Could be wrong. Need to see it. Need to see it work. I still have this hankering feeling that it's a bit of the laughing at the village idiot, rather than something that you're empathizing with. Or am I just reading too much into it?
But what if the village idiot's a robot?
Well, that's true. Yeah. But should we be encouraging just laughing at people or laughing at things? I don't know. There's
You mentioned this earlier, but there is a difference between laughing at somebody and laughing with somebody, right?
absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's what I'm trying to get at here when I talk about like comedy and comedic timing when it comes to physical, right? Like Three Stooges. That's not my type of humor, but they are physical comedian actors in the sense that they are hurting each other, quote unquote, right? Where a lot of those things are stunts. And so they're not actually hurting each other, but it certainly looks that way. And why is that funny to us as humans? I don't have that answer, but that is something that we certainly, a certain demographic, enjoys watching. And I can imagine that there are certain situations where klutziness is funny, and just clumsiness, because we've all had that scenario. You fall down a flight of stairs and then get laughed at in the office every day after that because you fell down the stairs. Yes, I still remember that. So there's but I mean, that happens, right? That happens. And people in hindsight can laugh at how silly it is when it happens to you. You can be like, "Oh man, I can't believe I got a hairline fracture in my arm because I fell down the wrong way," or something. And at least with a robot, no one's getting hurt. The robot's feelings aren't getting hurt, at least until it becomes sentient, and that's a different discussion entirely. But
Yeah. It's just I just find it interesting because it's a bit like taking your Three Stooges step further, Jackass as a
there you go,
as a thing. Are you laughing at them or with them? That's a very fine line. The other bit that interests me about this is how they teach it. So they talk about the software being very simple, very a really smooth sort of interaction piece on this, and I mean that's got to be so critical. You see a bit of the video of where they're doing. So they have a person using the where they've got the dots on the body to do some tracking, and then they translate that that movement into the robot. That's also going to be another significant part of that development to give it human-like characteristics, where they're actually taking human movement and translating it to a robot form. So I think also I think it is one of these things that it looks quite simple on the face of it, but there's an awful lot of complexity in the background to make something a simple fall be a robust action, because it's a fall, it's a pick itself up again, it's a carry on to do then something else similar later on. So I think that whole software development cycle is also quite a complex thing.
Yeah, there's I had some help with this one, but there's a couple reasons in which we might think that physical comedy is funny. So Schadenfreude, right? I mean, there's always that. There's this incongruity concept where it's sort of this unexpected or violation of that expectations, where you are not expecting it to fall or trip in that way. There's obviously the superiority complex piece that you're you're more fortunate than the other people. So I mean, there's a couple different options, and humor's highly subjective, so I'll take that with a grain of salt. I do want to get into one of these social thoughts though before we get too far. So you mentioned safety earlier. Alex brings up, what safety measures will be in place for the guests? They say new consents, since there will be likely data capture. How is that regulated? Implications across domains outside of media for human replacement. Bonus, would this further expand STEM careers? So maybe we take that one at a time. So what safety measures will be in place for the guests? So I think we already kind of talked about that one. Let's talk about this next one here. New consents, since there will be likely data capture. What do you think? Do you think there's going to be some increased resistance to getting into the parks, into these scenarios where you're going to be interacting with these robots?
I don't think there would be. I think anybody who's going along to Disney is already signing up for an immersive experience.
Mm-hmm.
You already know there's cameras everywhere. You know there's actors walking around that you're going to have level interaction with. And as you said earlier, there are boundaries that that there's a behavior code that you're expected to adhere to. So your data is already being used in a multitude of different ways, from where you eat, what you eat, how you eat, what you drink, where you drink, what you buy. So they're already there. I don't think this will. I think you will have to have new consents. I think there'll be something about interacting with this type of stuff, but I don't think it'll stop people from doing it, because I think people are wholesale signed up to it anyway.
No, yeah, I think you're right. There's going to be like a clause in the terms and services of purchasing a ticket that says you may interact with a robot, it may hurt you. You are waiving your right to whatever. It's going to be in there that no one reads, and it's just going to be part of that. So I don't think any new consent forms will be drawn up until there's a lawsuit about it. In terms of regulation, I don't know. What types of, are you familiar with any sort of laws, regulation in place to protect humans from robots at this time? There's standards.
Well, there's standards out there, but there is no actual regulation there. The nearest I've got is transport regulation around the use of autonomy in vehicles, but nothing out there that would do this. It is a question that I've been considering recently, because some work I'm looking at sort of in the medical domain, and having a sort of a robot engagement at that element. But again, there's no legal aspect, that certainly in the UK, that I'm aware of. Are we going to need something? Don't know. I think we'll see how I think it's almost like what you said earlier. We don't need it right until the point that somebody gets sued, and then there will be regulation created.
And the next part of the question: implications across domains outside of media for human replacement. I think we talked a little bit about this with like factory floor settings, being able to modularly replace these robots, in-home humanoid robots that need replacing parts. Just in terms of the emotional aspect, we had talked about putting devices in elder care homes a while back. And
Yeah.
for that emotional support, I can imagine putting a robot in was it a robot or was it a voice chat? I don't remember. It was something. But I can imagine putting an emotional support robot in people's homes to help out with that. So, yes, for human replacement, certainly. What other scenarios can you imagine there, Barry?
So, looking after children, quite simply. So, child companion. We already have various things with videos built into them, cameras built into them, and that type of thing. Huge toys that they can play with. Why not?
Nannybot.
Yeah. Why is this that? I can easily see being the your child's next best friend. Again, for children's therapy, we talked about adult therapy, but also children's therapy. I think there is a potential. I don't know. There was a potential law aspect here, a justice thing where you're wanting to get testimony out of children, and if you've got something like this that that is a much more engaging thing than some what comparatively old white man trying in a uniform trying to get you to describe what happened as a 3 or 5 year old, you might relate more to a thing like this than you would anything else. So, but I don't know. There's potential, lots of different types of application from the word now that I can't remember the name of. But basically, looking at having robots available to do different things, but they're not, they're having a level of engagement, but they can be easily maintainable and easily replaceable.
Mm-hmm. Agree. This last part, I think we kind of talked about this already, but further expanding STEM careers. We talked about PhDs being spawned off from this, but I agree that this could be the modular piece, especially being able to build modular robots in a STEM class, science and engineering classroom setting would be very cool. And I just think the emotional piece could add an additional element to that, at least from a human factors perspective. Let's get human factors engineering in at the
Yeah.
STEM level. That would be great. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's just asking for 3D printed parts, isn't it?
Mhm.
3D printed parts to be designed and developed, and you creating your own version of this robot. So the core articulation piece being a common element that you build the electronics, you build the servos, you build the motors, you build the engagement, you do the bit of programming. But the limbs, the arms and the head, you can print your own custom versions of them. And I dread to think what some kids will come up with. I dread to think what some adults will come up with. But yeah, so there's clearly a lot around that. It would be a great, really, really good teaching mechanism. Not only because you could print out, so you could design and print some stuff, but actually it would have to work within the system. So if you built sort of two limbs that were unequal, well, it would misbalance the robot. So it would fall over and not recover. So you'd have to not only just design some cool stuff, because you're going to come up with some weird and wacky stuff, but you'd have to look at the entire system to make sure it fit in with the system, and that would be quite a nuanced piece of education.
Yeah, or I mean, you could have the uneven things and fix it through software.
Yeah.
Have it do a maneuver where it's one-sided maneuver where it does like a shoulder roll or something instead of a somersault. So you could definitely, by modifying the infill of the 3D prints, change the weights of things and accommodate for those things in a software basis. All right, I think we're kind of talked out on this topic. Do you have any other closing thoughts on this, Barry?
Well, just actually, you just inspired a thought just by that last comment, that by doing that would be a natural alignment to the way they design fast jet aircraft now. because they designed faster aircraft to be aerodynamically unstable, and the software fixes it to make it more agile. So yeah, that will make that directly applicable to modern day engineering.
There you go. The last thing I'll say is that I'm excited. Let's bring it on. I can't wait till this is like humanoid robots and I can see Spider-Man fighting I don't know, Venom in the parks, and they're just beating each other up and flying everywhere. That'd be cool. I'm excited for it. Let's make it happen, because humans can't do that in a safe way that's replicatable every couple hours for a show. All right. Well, thank you to our patrons this week for selecting the topic, and thank you to our friends over at IEEE Spectrum for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, we do post the links to all the original articles and our weekly roundups in our blog. You can also join us on our Discord for more discussion on these stories and much more. And of course, you can always leave us social thoughts by using the hashtag HFC Social Thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back to see what's going on in the human factors community right after this.
Are you tired of boring lectures and textbooks on human factors and UX? Well, grab your headphones and get ready for a wild ride with the Human Factors Minute podcast. Each minute is like a mini crash course packed with valuable insights and information on various organizations, conferences, usability methods, theories, models, certifications, tools, and much more. We'll take you on a journey through the fascinating world of human factors, from the ancient history to the latest trends and developments. Listen in as we explore the field and discover new ways to enhance the user experience. From the Think Aloud protocol to the critical incident technique, focus groups, iterative design, we'll make sure that you're the smartest person in the room. Tune in on the 10th, the 20th, and the last day of every month for a new and interesting tidbit related to human factors. Don't miss out on the Human Factors Minute podcast, your ultimate source for all things human factors.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our monthly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and access to the full library of Human Factors Minute, a weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Yes, we want to give a huge thank you, as always, to all of our patrons. We especially want to thank our Human Factors Cast All Access patron, Michelle Tripp. Patrons like you truly keep the show and the lights on and everything just going. We need your support, and we appreciate your support. So thank you. But now it's time for that show where we do the thing. So Barry, I'm going to have you do this one this week.
Oh, right. Okay, let's do it.
Caught you off guard.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your hats, buckle up, because we have some breaking news. Are you ready for it? Brace yourselves. Here goes. We officially have a Discord server. That's right, our very own secret society, a secret clubhouse for all high-flying professionals like yourself. Believe it or not, there are other people out there just like you folks from different parts of the world with unique insights. Take a stroll into our magnificent server, a world-class server that even Elon Musk will be jealous of, and you can finally access all those resources that you've been guarding so preciously in our underground bunker for many, many years. Have you been yearning to talk about the latest cloud gaming trends, NFTs, or just finding other intelligent, like-minded people who share your passion for all things tech? Well, our Discord server is the place to be. And don't even get me started on our voice channels. You can finally lose your inhibitions, unleash your true voice, no more soulless and dry text messaging. You can even chat with other users in our lab chat. Now, I know that what you're thinking, but hey, what about career advice? Don't worry, we've got you covered as always. We've got a wealth of knowledge and experience in various fields, and our Discord server is where you can tap into all of that incredible expertise. Ask the most brilliantly dumb questions, that's my job, and post questionnaires for research, and voila, you have your career trajectory all figured out. So what are you waiting for? Join us on our Discord server Now, let's get this party started.
Sometimes they're great, and sometimes they're not, and sometimes they're accurate, and sometimes they're not. But yeah, we have a Discord server. Come join us. All right, let's get into this next part of the show.
It came from.
That's right. It came from. This is the part of the show where we search all over the internet to bring you topics the community is talking about. So if you think any of these answers are useful, give us a like. Actually, just give us a like wherever you're listening or watching right now to help other people find this stuff. All right, we have 3 up tonight. We have 2 from Reddit, one voicemail, which is nice. A nice change of pace here. And if you want to leave us a voicemail, that's humanfactorscast.media/voicemail. You can do that. And if we like it enough, we'll feature it on the show. All right, this first one here is by Deanna Sarah UXR on the UX Research subreddit. What is the most exciting project that you've worked on? Tell me about your favorite project that you've worked on. I love discussing new features for AI with security cameras. Want to hear what excites you?
Oh, well, see, I struggle with this because I've been lucky enough to be involved in a broad variety of stuff. So early on in my career, in my HF career, I got involved in the early touchscreens in civil aircraft and helicopters. So playing with them before, I mean, now they're all over the place. But this was like really, we were actually looking at like what technology gets involved and how you apply them. And that was also when I was like, that was my early introduction to human factors. So that always has a sort of a special place in my heart. But then a couple of years on, I was then designing an interface for the Harrier GR9 fast jet aircraft. I mean, fast jets. I mean, what is not to love about playing with such pieces of high tech? But what was really cool about this was I was putting a single system. That's it. The team was putting a single system into an already super complicated platform that we wanted the pilot to be able to access when all they've got is a hands-on throttle and stick that was already crammed full of the equivalent of control or delete and stick a finger up your nose to make it happen. We were putting color into a monochrome cockpit. That was phenomenal. It was really good fun. But then more recently, I've been doing some a couple of years ago interface design on nuclear submarines, leading a team implementing new processes. So whilst I was doing some of the design work, I had a team who was doing the design work, but we were developing it in a completely different way, bringing in more agile and things like that, and fundamentally being trusted not to mess it up. So yeah, that wasn't the question. You wanted 1, but I've given you 3, and I could have picked in a bunch more. It's what I love about doing this sort of work is, literally, it's a bit of a cliche, but no 2 projects are the same.
You love all your children, right? I mean,
do.
like that's kind of how it
Excellent.
feels. All the projects that you work on have had their own unique challenges. They've
Yes.
had their own unique requirements and solutions, really. And so when it comes to what my favorite is, I'm with you, Barry. I like a lot of the stuff that I've worked on. I think my favorite ones I can't necessarily talk about, but it was closely related to data aggregation and providing tools to act on and manipulate that data. And that's about all I can say. It was just a really fun project to work on when you think about a lot of different data sources. Again, I wish I could say more, but that's about it. But supply chain is cool too. If you want to talk to me about supply chain, come visit me in Discord. I'm happy to talk about that. All right, this next one here is one that's near and dear to our hearts, I guess, Barry. Do you use ChatGPT and other AI models in your research analysis? If so, how? This is by Miner73 on the UX Research subreddit. They write, as a UX researcher for 5 years, I'm interested in knowing if others use AI models in their work. How do you use AI models in your research? Do you have any successful cases that you can share? Also, if you're interested, okay, well, there you go. What do you use AI models for in your work, if you use it at all, Barry?
So we're still playing with it and working out what the boundaries are and what it is you can actually play with this stuff. So we've been quite successful in developing early stage personas, early exploration of topic ideas. The I think the idea came up on one of our previous things now, previous episodes, and I tried it about having them as another head at the table for ideation. So tapping ideas into it and getting it to reflect some ideas, because what I quite like about it, even though we talk about AI bias, is the lack of bias into what, I will always plumb into certain things that I know, even, unconsciously you do it. And it does throw out other ideas that are just completely out of left field, but are completely legitimate. So I quite like that. Survey testing, ideas testing, prototype testing. So that's not the testing of the actual prototype, but testing the prototype idea of what we're doing to see if it holds together. Bits of engagement, bits of analysis of inputs. So when we've done surveys, things like that, bringing some of that in and getting it to summarize and articulate some of the main outcomes. I think it's a great starter. It's a great analysis tool, but it's not a finisher. You cannot rely on it, I think, to give you beautifully. It's not taking our jobs away. I think it's a great tool to use. I think it allows me as a small company to do more. So I can turn around to my team and, when initially they would come to me and I would go, with a question, I was like, have you Googled that to see if there's an answer already out there rather than trying to do something from scratch? There's now a two-stage process. Have you Googled it and have you chat GPT'd it? To see what comes up with. So, yeah, there is a bit of that. And given that you didn't read the other bit out of that, I'm not going to say my other comment.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So let's just say it because the original, what I wasn't going to say was that they wrote a blog piece and they were plugging that. But Barry, what was your other piece? Because I want to highlight that.
Yeah, because I wrote an article, and it made it to a magazine and stuff as well, and on the front cover, and Nick was cited in it and stuff. So it was all very exciting.
I love that. Love that. I use it. In my workflows, and the way I use AI models and chat tools, AI chat tools, is a couple things. You're right. It is sort of the starter, but not a finisher. I use it for preliminary data analysis. And what I mean by that is like very, very rudimentary, summarize this, kind of like the outputs of a, you do like a user interview with several different people, and then they all give you an answer, summarize these answers, right? It's very preliminary, just in terms of, and I do it on an answer by answer basis because of restrictions with the memory in the chat. And so there's very specific use cases that I do for analysis. I want to be clear. It's not like the entire analysis that I do. It's a very useful starting point for understanding what was said across multiple people, though. There's other things that you can do with it, like making preliminary personas. Obviously, they are not a replacement for real persona data, but based on averages and based on everything that's out there, it can provide you with some information that is a good placeholder for when you vet that with people. Then there's also data structuring. So like, let's say I have unstructured data and I throw it in there. I can say, make this into a table or whatever, and it'll just do it. And I don't have to worry about it. Let's say it's a chat from an interview or something, and they say, well, you to make a margarita, you need 1 lime and you need margarita mix and you need tequila, and basically then I say, make this into a table with ingredients and what I need, how much of it, right? And I take that qualitative data, that transcript, and turn it into a table. That's the type of things that I do with it as well. I do meeting recaps with AI tools. I think that is really useful. There's one that I really like that is free right now. It's called Briefly, and it is just phenomenal. I don't use it at work, but I use it for other things in my personal workflow. And it's just, if you don't care about giving your data to a company, it's really good. So I don't use it for anything that's super important. I use it for emails and communications, internal and external, especially when you think about how to phrase something going out to a customer of yours, or an end user of yours that you don't want to necessarily lose. You want to be careful about how you phrase things. I also use it for survey development, making sure that the response options and the question phrasing are all good to go. If I can't quite think of how to ask this question, I brainstorm some ideas that way. Again, Barry, yeah, I think it is very much a starter, not a finisher. I think that's it. We got one more question, and this one's by Rain. They actually left us a voicemail, so I'm going to play this.
Nick and Barry, love your show, guys. So, I'm kind of new to this field, graduating soon, and I was just thinking, how do I make some connections, maybe find a mentor, someone who's like really established so I can learn the ropes, have some virtual coffee chats, and just like absorb all their wisdom. And any advice, guys?
Any advice, Barry? What do you think for mentorship?
Well, I would go and look at the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors, which has worldwide membership. So no matter where you're at, it's always there. And the reason I say that is we've got some amazing mentors in there. So we have a specific mentor forum where you can ask broader questions and find the mentor that's perfect for you. And really outside of that as well, we very close-knit community, very helpful people. So, and the reason I say that is because mentors are really good for that one-to-one support and helping you develop personally, and basically being an honest broker. They can give you the hard line when you need to hear it. But actually, when Ray was asking about virtual coffee meetings and stuff, don't forget the wider network, because a lot of us like coffee, even if it's virtual, and we're all very friendly people. So take both sides of that and do both. So I would personally push the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors for obvious reasons. Nick, what do you think? Where would you go?
Well, Mr. President. So look, there's a couple options. One of the easiest, I wouldn't say easiest. It's always going to be difficult to well, let me say that. It's going to be difficult for people who are awkward about networking. Let me just put it that way. If you find yourself in a situation where you are networking with others, like let's say at a conference, maybe perhaps one that's happening next week in the UK.
Yay.
If you find yourself in a room of folks and you find yourself talking to somebody who's had a similar background as you, similar experience as you, similar career trajectory that you want, you might want to pull them aside and say, hey, I really appreciate, the chat that we had. Would you be okay if I reached out and followed up a little late? You don't have to call it a mentorship thing, but just, I'd love to, have a chat with you a little bit later. I would love to learn a little bit more about how you handled these types of things in your past. You don't have to call it a mentorship. It can be really informal. There's, I also want to talk about the types of mentorship that you can have. There's sort of the structured, set up for you mentorships where you're like working at a company and somebody pairs you with someone who knows the ropes, has been around for a while, and they can kind of teach you. Then there's also the almost self-prescribed mentorship options, like in academia, school, where you've said, I want to work with this professor because they are working on this thing. And so that is almost like a self-prescribed thing because you're working in that area, but then you've chosen the teacher. Kind of, it's this weird relationship sometimes, but can also be very good and fruitful. And then there's also sort of this one that happens naturally where you're talking with somebody and it just evolves into that mentorship. There's plenty of resources online. ADP list is one. I'm a mentor over there, full disclosure. I think that I will describe one instance that worked on me. Somebody cold messaged me on LinkedIn and said, hey, would you mind talking about human factors? And I said, no, I would not mind talking about human factors. They had some really interesting questions that I didn't mind answering for them. So cold messaging on LinkedIn, providing a little bit of context around your situation. And again, spelling out the background piece. And then, of course, you can always visit us on our Discord. There's a ton of people in there that you can ask for. You know what? Myself included. I'll throw myself in there, and presumably Barry too if he has time. But throwing us in there, Barry. You reach out to us. We can be your Discord mentors. Okay. Yeah. Anything else with that one, Barry, or should we move on to one more?
I think. Actually, there's one small thing, because when you talk about different types, I think it's also you need to work out what it is you want from a mentor as well. Because if you want promotion within your company, so if you've got a company, and so you can often get senior people within your company to mentor you, and that's useful because they will know, the other players within the company, how the company processes work and stuff like that. That's good. However, you've also got to remember that with them, the company will probably, it might not come first, but it will certainly come equal par to you. They will not put you above the company at that point. And that's nothing against them. That's just the way life is. If you're looking for your own professional development, somebody to be an honest broker for you, I would strongly recommend getting somebody outside of your company to be a mentor, because then they can be objective. I've done it quite a few times with mentees where you've been there. You can sort of say, well, is this the point where you need to move department or jump ship or do something like that, because you're not necessarily getting everything that you need here, or they might be having a hard time with it within the company, and you can be that objective. Well, is this person treating you in the right way? Maybe you need to raise this up and give that sort of affirmation. So just be clear about what it is you're wanting out of a mentorship, because that will direct you to the sort of person that you get, either internal or external, to your organization.
Good points. All right, it's time for one more thing. It's where we get the opportunity to talk about one more thing. Barry, what's your one more thing this week?
So this week we're talking about a Channel 4 program here in the UK called Scared of the Dark, where they've started it, and it's basically I think it's 7 days. They've got a bunch of celebrities in there inside this hangar, inside this complex, where it's blacked out. And they are they've got to last all this time doing tasks, doing various bits. Some of them are scared of the dark, some of them are not. But literally it's pitch black. And you get to watch it all through like sort of the night vision camera lenses and stuff. And they've had like various things, like people walking around in the dark around them, and they have to do various challenges like getting through locked doors. So they've got a variety of celebrities in there, but one of them is really cool because he's blind. And so for him, he's like, well, it's just another Tuesday, isn't it? And he's leading everybody else around, and really being really beneficial to them. But if they get some of the tasks right, they actually get some time in a light room. And so he was part of this. So there was two of them won this task, and this blind guy was one of them. And so then the reward is to go to his light room, and he's like, well, what's the point of that? Because he couldn't get the benefit of it. But it was it's really interesting seeing some of these dynamics work, and just when you sort of get a real appreciation of how important sight truly is to our engaging with our environment. And this is apparently a world first. So we're about halfway through at the moment. It's making quite interesting watching.
What is this, like Celebrity Big Brother in the dark?
Pretty much. That's not far off, actually. Yes. So I mean, in terms of some of the celebrities, I don't know if you heard of Chris Eubank, the boxer. You maybe not. I think these are mostly British celebrities.
Probably, yeah.
But they're it is interesting. Slightly ethically weird as well, but there we go.
We've been going through old seasons of Big Brother because it's been forever since I watched, like a million years ago, but we've been going through some old seasons, which will be a one more thing in the future. But I was going to comment on the final update of Love is Blind, but I understand that somebody on this distinguished panel of podcast hosts is now watching that show. So I'm going to hold off on that until next week. I did notice so my one more thing this week is this really interesting thing that happened to me. My son loves to watch on my YouTube account garbage, for a lack of a better word, kid related content. Okay. And what I noticed the other day is that I think YouTube knows this. I think YouTube knows that there are two people watching on this account. You know how I know? At night, the recommendations are very different than in the morning, what the recommendations are for. And this surprised me. I was like, oh, wait. You're showing me all Star Wars stuff right now. Why are you showing me all Star? Wait, I don't see a single kid related thing that would be like of his. I logged on, the morning after I noticed that. And I was like, yep, it's all kid related. And so I'm really impressed by their ability to parse apart two separate viewing profiles. They understand that two people are watching this, or they at least understand that there's a preference for certain types of content in the morning than there is for other types of content in the evening.
Yeah.
And it's also device specific. If I were to log in on my phone, it's Star Wars recommendations. If I were to log in on the TV where he watches, it's child related recommendations. So I just thought it was interesting and a really good application of human factors, taking that user centered approach. And so kudos. All right. I think that's it for today. So if you like this episode and enjoyed some of the discussion about robots, I'll encourage you to go listen to our last episode where we talked about how robots will teach kids in the future. Comment wherever you're listening what you think of the story this week. For more in-depth discussion, you can always join us on our Discord community. Visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter, stay up to date with all the latest Human Factors news. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple options for you. One, you could like and leave us a 5-star review wherever you're watching or listening right now. That is free for you to do. Helps out the show. Two, if you have friends, you can tell them about us. That really helps the show grow. Number one way that we grow. Make a LinkedIn post, Facebook post. I don't know. Somewhere you can show your appreciation for us. We'd appreciate that. Three, if you have the financial means to do so, you want to get some cool perks. And you want to give to the show, you can financially give to the show via Patreon. Like I said, you get a bunch of cool perks. Just $1 gets you in the door. There's always a revolving door of content going on. In fact, Barry and I are recording a piece of exclusive content tomorrow morning. So that's tomorrow morning for me. Anyway, that's a whole bunch of fun. As always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. Sir, Mr. President Barry Kirby, your worship, where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about robots stumbling and falling?
So you can find me on social media, particularly Twitter at Baz_K, or if you want to listen to some interviews that I've been doing, you can find me on the 1202 The Human Factors podcast at 1202podcast.com.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me on our Discord and across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning in to Human Factors Cast. Until next time, it depends. Buy the sticker. It's right here. Buy the sticker. $2.99. I should have a sticker. I should order one myself and just put it on my forehead.
That'd be subtle. Oh gosh, that was fun.
It was a good topic. I think. So, full disclosure for the people who are watching live, I guess. I got a call from my insurance about halfway through this. And I listened to it during our break. And we've been waiting on a really important medication. And I think it got approved.
Right, okay.
They weren't clear about which one got approved. So I think the important one did, but the way it was phrased was not clear. So I think it's good news, but I'm not sure. So
you've had some medication approved.
Something was approved. Just hope it's the right one. And that was distracting in the middle of the episode, so I feel like I lost my train of thought. I got that call right in the middle of us discussing, so I feel like I lost my train of thought thinking about what that voicemail could say. So my head was going crazy with a bunch of different directions of thought. Because for me, the biggest piece, and I'll tell you now, is like the entertainment piece for me. I want to see robots beating each other up, and
that was evident. We
putting on
got
a show.
Loud and clear. But it's interesting though, isn't it? Because when you look at that, how many? So you're absolutely right to point out areas where it can be used where you just can't put humans. So, you got samurais and ninjas just
lightsaber fights.
Yeah, pirate fighter, all that sort of stuff. Really good. But then will come the day of actually that actor's really expensive. Just that lead, that extra in the film, they're just really expensive. So let's just have robots do them all. And then he's suddenly into basically Westworld, and stuff. And then where does that stop? But it goes back to, we've said it before around using AI to produce art. Where is the value in the human being involved? It's a bit like I'm always surprised at how much humans are involved in the generation of animation. So you can have them it's really posh actors' voices, and actually some of them they do get dressed up and do the actions and stuff. And you're like, well, why don't you just animate all of that? Because there's something about the human art in it. At what point do we just not care about that anymore? And it's all just robots and AI, and we just sit there and just consume it. Yeah,
I don't know. When is that point? Like, because
we can't be far away comparatively. Far away.
No, I mean, because I was thinking about this. Like, I've talked about this in a number of pre or post shows, where it's like, what would it take to recreate us in terms of like getting a trained response to the way we think, our experiences, and then to train basically get it to the point where you feed it in a link and it will generate everything about our show, from us talking to us finish it. Like, you know, I could already emulate our voices. We talked about that. There's a program that I'm trying out right now that's supposed to be a virtual you and will respond in a similar way that you will. You have to train it on data, but I'm not quite sure how it's working yet. But something like that, where you feed it, I don't know, all 280 of these. We've done 281 of these.
Wow.
If you feed it that much data, and it gets a sense for the structure of the show, how it's organized, thought patterns.
Yeah, I mean, I've been. I think I've said this before. I've been involved in a project that
the Digital Barry.
Yeah, Virtual Barry, and again, that was really, really interesting. Around, you know, eventually they just didn't need me. I was superfluous to it. It was more around, but he still needed my experiences. It wasn't just a computer reaction. It was a right. What would Barry do in this situation? Right. This is, you know, and that's what I'll give. If we get to that level of making that easy, which actually we're not a million miles away from, therefore you have your the visual sorted out, like you've got sorted out already. We don't need to be here. Let's just do it. But are you then losing the nuance that is us doing it? You know.
Certainly.
Would anybody care? Do people listen to this because they love the fallibility of who we are and what we do, and now as occasionally messing it up sometimes?
I don't know, but you could code for that too.
Well, yeah, you probably could, but yes, exciting times.
I just like, to me, it's an interesting experiment. Can I get it to the point where I could automate it? Everything.
Well, I mean, you must be able to. You absolutely must. But
no, it's not far off. Like that's the thing, is like I get automated agents to do a lot of this stuff on my behalf. The missing piece for me is the visual piece, the reactionary piece, and sort of the interaction between us. Like I'm missing. I also guess like I don't know how to the virtual recreation of ourselves. If I could upload it every life experience I've had, you know, like I don't know how to do that to where. Can you train a system on a limited number of responses and have it then respond to things as if you would? Because that's how a lot of these language models work, is they're trained on inputs and outputs.
Yeah.
And if, you know, what are the inputs for this podcast? The input would be a link. The output would be then the show notes. And then the show notes would be an input to launching a discussion. And then the blurb, you know, there would be an input to say, Barry, what's our story this week? The input would be you then reading the blurb. And then once you're done, comes up with some prompt to say, Nick, what do you think? And then that would be my input to the initial discussions, and then the initial thoughts. Those thoughts are mine. How is it going to come up with initial thoughts?
The initial, that would be, yes, because you've got initial thoughts on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got I was going to say structured discussion, but it's not. And that's
Semi-structured.
Semi-structured, but then part of it, so if we get certain topics, we don't use the structure at all. We just inspired. Other times it can be, let's say, slightly more difficult. So we use the structure to allow us to pace through it. How would the AI allow you to have not get formulaic? So, because otherwise it would just sit there.
That's the thing, is our show is formulaic. It's consisted of 4 parts and 5 parts, and you can understand a lot of it based on, like, the part that is not formulaic is the way in which we approach the conversation.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
It's formulaic in the sense that it is a conversation.
It's true, and we do have. That's kind of what I was getting at. Is sometimes if we're struggling for how we're going to talk about it, we've got a structure in place that we can use to break it down and analyze it and rip it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But actually, some of the other bits are more about if we just happen to be inspired, and so like last week you couldn't shut us up about the topic last week because we were just doing so much about it. Whereas we've had other weeks where they've been harder until we've played. It would be for us then that's based off our own experience. Whereas it'd be easy for the AI to just sit there and say and just take the discussion formula, the discussion fallback template, and just constantly do that without really breaking it up. And so you'd have it'd get boring because you'd always know that, well, the first thing they're going to talk about is this bit, and then they're going to move on to this, then they're going to move on to this. Whereas we do mix things up.
Well, you could certainly introduce some randomization elements to it to and that's where I'm like, how do you fine train that model to make it do that? Because that'd be cool. And then, like, I don't know, to me, I would consider this in like 5 parts, right? The outro is the outro. One more thing is one more thing, and that's another thing that it's like it's gonna have to make up one more things. That's a human component of this show.
Yeah. So
we could feed it inputs, but
I'm now in a difficult situation because I've just had a message from somebody. Trevor's just messaged me. I don't know whether he's listening live, but he's just sent me a link saying, want to talk about on Human Factors Cast. And it's a YouTube link. And I don't know whether to press it or not. I guess I could press it and not have the sound on to see what it is.
Yes, do that.
It might be relevant to this discussion.
Do it.
I'm doing it.
You could send Trevor the dial-in link.
That
we have for patrons and lab.
It's about how existing AI capabilities already pose catastrophic risks to functional society. How AI companies are caught in a race to deploy as quickly as possible without adequate safety measures. Also, it's about stuff that we've, I guess, touched upon in the past. The race for AI. The irony behind that. So, do you remember I think it was on one of the previous post shows where the letter had been signed by people saying, including Elon Musk saying,
gotta slow down.
Slow down. Whoa there, you're all being too fast. And now Musk is signed up.
His own AI.
Yeah. Made his own AI. And you're just like, going back to the conversation we were having in the pre-show about, yes, I fully respect what he does on SpaceX. I fully respect what he does on Tesla, but he is still, not a very nice person. Anyway.
Yeah.
What I shall do, because we can it's out there, then 'cause this is on the Center for Humane Technology. And so maybe it's something we could put in the mix for a. Oh no, wrong one. There we go.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Like it's one of these I'm going to have to
Sit down and watch. Yeah, it's an hour and 7 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think I can do that in 10 minutes. It's got subtitles on it.
But okay, so one of the opening slides, 10% of AI researchers. That's not a whole lot. I think we're okay.
Yeah.
These are the people who study AI, and only 10% of them. I think that's pretty good odds.
It's I think these are the sort of discussions we do need to be having, because they're part of the balanced debate. I know that we're quite cool. We're very keen about it. We like using this sort of stuff and testing it and see where it goes. But you do need the other side of the argument of the actually we don't think it's the right thing to do. It's going too far, because somewhere in the middle is the truth. Somewhere in the middle is the best thing for everyone. So in the UK, we've just had. Did I tell you I've got an electric car? I don't know if I told you that.
Oh, I think you mentioned it once or twice.
So one of the things that the Mustang does have in the US, and has had it for a long time now, is Blue Cruise, where it's hands off, eyes off driving. It's hands off driving, and I think it just keeps as long as you're looking forward, it'll take you where you want to go. It stays in the center of your lane, keeps the distance from the car in front, all that sort of stuff. And I think it does lane change as well. In the UK, that's not allowed. We haven't, fundamentally, you're not allowed to do it. Not even Teslas that can do that over in the UK, because it hasn't got the legal backing. However, last week, Ford got the okay to use Blue Cruise 2. So that if you're getting a car, a 2022 model, a 23 model, which will have it in, you'll be allowed to pay Ford £18 a month to be able to use this feature. And I think my car will get it at the back end of this year. So Amanda was suggesting, would you want to pay £18 a month to use it? And I was like, take my money. Of course I would. It's one of these things, not because I think it's a thing that I need or anything like that, but I certainly want to try it but that's my level of geekiness. It might
early adopter.
Yeah, I might try it for a couple of months.
How's your Google Glass doing?
It's still in. Yeah, that I was a. In fact, there was. I still stand by. I think Google played that really well. With what they did. I think a lot of people do claim that was a complete failure, but it was only a failure if you consider. Well, it depends what you attribute to success, because they didn't spend any money on it. They managed to sell it all, and get us all to pay for what was effectively a really well-developed beta program.
So while we're on the topic of Google Glass, I have to bring up the stories for next week, because we usually do this.
Yep, that's true.
At the post show. I'm going to post this in the chat. Everyone can go and vote on the story for next week. This is open to the public. I encourage you all to do so. Have a voice in what the show's about. Really appreciate that audience participation. And I can tell you what the votes are right now as we're live. The stories next week are as follows. And I'm going to read the one that directly relates to Google Glass first. So, new smart glasses tell you what to say on dates using GPT-4.
That's going to be wrong.
Then you have deep space missions must recreate exact Earth-like conditions to survive, scientists argue.
Vote for that one, everyone. I want to talk about space. Anyway, sorry.
Another AI one. Is AI driving us away from designing human-centric experiences?
Nope. Next.
Okay. There's a hard pass on that one. How road rage really affects your driving and the self-driving cars of the future.
Yeah, go for that one. That's interesting. Road rage is really interesting. I've seen it now firsthand in a friend of mine. Not now, it was a bunch of years ago. Really nice bloke. But as soon as somebody cut him up on the road, he turned into like the Incredible Hulk. Really wanted to like kill. I was like, dude, chill. Just let it pass. But some people just can't. I just find that so there's a level of fascination around that.
Yeah. So please go vote in the stories, and we'll talk about one of those next week. That'll be the story for next week. Again, deep space missions must recreate exact Earth-like conditions to survive, scientists argue. Is AI driving us away from designing human-centric experiences? New smart glasses telling you what to say on dates using GPT-4. And the last one, of course, is how road rage really affects your driving and the self-driving cars of the future. Go vote. Would love to know what you all think of those stories. We are now posting the polls on Monday nights, or I guess Tuesday mornings. That's when I usually schedule them. But you can vote every Tuesday, and it'll be a good time because we'll then have your input into what we talk about on the show, and it's just a good old time. Great good old time. If you want to know the current, shall I say, the current results, they're not results, they're the current status. Is that right? The current status of the poll. I'm working on that right now as we speak. So the current status, where we're at, is we've got 3 for the how road rage really affects your driving. In second place, we have a tie between the deep space missions and the smart glasses.
Fair enough.
And then no one's voting for that AI driving us away from human-centric experiences. I guess we're all tired of AI now.
Oh, they took my hint at the hard no. Not that we should influence how people vote, but yeah, let's not do that.
Yeah, not that we should. Oh! Someone else just voted. Oh, you know what I should do? Hold on. This is. Why didn't I Barry?
What?
Barry.
What have I done?
Why didn't I think of it? Hold on, man. Look at this. You ready?
Go on then. My anticipation is just palpable.
No, I know, and I'm really trying hard to get this going as quickly as I can.
If this doesn't work, I'm going to be so disappointed.
Nah, this is not going to be disappointing at all. I promise you. Because you know what I've done is I've posted the link in the chat, but why wouldn't I just do this?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Hey, choose the news for next week.
No, the chat allows you to click the link.
The chat allows you to click the link, but this allows you to scan it depending on where you're watching from.
True. Yeah.
There's a couple previews in there. I'm going to keep that. All right. Yes, we are now tied for the two top stories. Is the deep space missions. Looks like we had some influence in that, Barry. And the road rage are tied for number 1. So if you all want to go vote, go vote. The link is right here. You can scan that little number. It'll take you right to the poll.
Cool. Like that.
We've had 8 of you vote so far, so that's great. And
but this is a democratic organization, so and I won't try and influence it by trying to pay you off in any way, because that'd be bad, or to try and alter my accounts to make it seem like I have.
Oh, are you altering your account? Okay, all right. There's yeah. So you mentioned that those 2 are the ones that you want to talk about. I don't have a preference really. I'd be fine with any of these.
Well, that's a bit boring, isn't it? So in that case, you need to vote for other.
Comment below.
Make Nick happy.
A write-in campaign. I always include the write-in campaign. I want people to be able to signal to us that there's a story that we missed, or something. Well, it's about that time, so I guess we're gonna wrap up. We're gonna say our good nights.
Indeed, I'm gonna go and find some painkillers, and I'm gonna go to sleep because it's been a long week already.
You do that, and we'll be back next week to talk about one of those fascinating stories. And
I'll be able to tell you all about conference.
And yeah, you'll be
very excited.
When is that?
Monday through Wednesday.
That's great. That doesn't interfere with the show programming at all.
No, I hope you appreciate the amount of effort I put into making that happen.
I certainly do. I certainly do. All right, for everyone else, take care of yourselves. We'll be back next week, and go vote on that poll. Give you some
Have a good one.
All right, bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Are you tired of boring lectures and textbooks on human factors and UX? Well, grab your headphones and get ready for a wild ride with the Human Factors Minute podcast. Each minute is like a mini crash course packed with valuable insights and information on various organizations, conferences, usability methods, theories, models, certifications, tools, and much more. We'll take you on a journey through the fascinating world of human factors, from the ancient history to the latest trends and developments. Listen in as we explore the field and discover new ways to enhance the user experience. From the Think Aloud protocol to the critical incident technique, focus groups, iterative design, we'll make sure that you're the smartest person in the room. Tune in on the 10th, the 20th, and the last day of every month for a new and interesting tidbit related to human factors. Don't miss out on the Human Factors Minute podcast, your ultimate source for all things human factors.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our monthly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and access to the full library of Human Factors Minute, a weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember,